technology use that's happening in our schools today, and I'm very grateful to Angela Bick, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, as well as all of the teachers who came and tech integrators who did the presentations today. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I would love to see them do it again, because there's so much more that they can share, and excellent job. So on behalf of I think all of us here at the school committee, I would extend my sincerest thanks to everyone who participated tonight. So on that note, I'd like to call to order. Can you hear me okay back there? Yeah. Okay, just wanted to be sure. Call to order the meeting of the Newburyport Public Schools School Committee for Monday, December 1st. And Mrs. Kennedy, would you kindly call the roll?
Mr. Menon?
Present.
Mr. Cole?
Here.
Ms. Sweeney?
Present.
Mayor Holliday?
Present.
Mr. DeCanta?
Here.
Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Mr. Lucan?
Here.
Thank you. The flag is in the corner. Could we please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good evening. Our first item on our agenda is public comment. This is the time when the audience may address the school committee on issues that are on their minds. We would like you to step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comment to 2 minutes. As you know, if the school committee feels that someone on this committee can answer a question immediately tonight, we will try to do that. If we feel we need to do more investigation, we will be doing that as well. So is there anyone that has a public comment at this time? Yes.
Is this okay?
Well, do you want to be on camera?
What's that?
That's fine, Dave.
David Hawkeiser, a kid in the second and fourth grade. It came to my attention yesterday in a conversation with a number of other families that there's a vote next Tuesday on allocation of funds. From the way I understand it, is underspent when we did the building projects. And the vote is whether or not to apply those funds to the field at the high school. And I don't want to really talk about the field, but I was involved in a pretty lengthy committee having to do with communications with the community, between the school and the community. And when we went to go find out about this vote, because one of the 10 people I was with had heard about it, there was no information on the school site, no information on the city site, no mention of it on the calendar on either site. And so we said, well, are you sure there's a vote? And somebody said, yeah, I'm sure. And they pulled up, I gotta be honest, I forget where they actually found information on it. I don't know if one of the city councilors have his or her own Facebook page or something like that, but that's where they found the only reference to it. And I guess I have to think that that's just bad politics. If we're going to have a vote on allocating that kind of money, if we're going to want to engender a sense of trust and a sense of community. Now, I just moved here a year and a half ago, but from what I understand, the whole building project thing was pretty contentious as it was in the different factions of the city, and obviously raising taxes was always a contentious issue. And so it seemed like a bad move to me and to a number of people I'm speaking to, that if we're going to have a vote, it really should be everywhere. The information on what it means, the information on the fact that it exists, what happens if the vote doesn't pass, if it does pass. I've already read a number of emails from people who got in touch with me saying that they're going to vote no just because they don't want to trust anything. And this is, from what I can tell you, it seems to be a pretty easy to talk about concept. We have some money, we have some needs in the fields, yada, yada, yada. I would hate to think what happens if we try to get into something more nuanced in the schools or in the city. It's going to become that much more contentious. So I would like to prompt the school board and perhaps even with the mayor's presence, the city council, to spend a large portion of time this week letting people know that there's a vote next Tuesday and what it's about, because I would not, I don't want to say it like that. I would think we'd be much happier in a city where there's a sense of trust and transparency between leadership and constituency than not.
Thank you. Want to take that?
Sure, David, I'd be happy to respond to your comments, and thank you for that. First of all, I'd like to say that the vote on the school projects, I don't believe I would agree with you that it was contentious at all. We had a 78% approval for both school projects and a 56% for the senior community center. So
Again, I wasn't here, I was just like,
I know, I'm saying, I think the community came together in a huge way to support this. Both projects came in under budget. We were able to do some additional add-ons to the Knockmollen, so we're pretty much at max there. But we had a $3 million balance in the Knockmollen budget. And so one of the things that we have been struggling with and we've been working on for years is a field space research and project. And so that information has been posted on the city website. That information has been, we've met with every sports team. We've brought 22 coaches together. We've brought parents together. And we've had a whole series of meetings to get consensus on how to move forward on the fields, because every field needed upgrades. And so we were able to build consensus after a series of very, very difficult meetings to come together on the stadium, the high school stadium first. And so a group of us got together and were able to work with the coaches and make a presentation to the Community Preservation Committee, because now the CPA funds are available for recreational fields, because for a period of time they weren't, because it was tied up in litigation because of a situation in Newton. Legislation changed, and now under the Division of Open Space, fields are able to be funded again. So through tremendous community push and community effort last spring, we came to the agreement that we would first do the high school field, then we would work on Knockmollen, because we displaced a baseball field when we built the school, and it was the only second large full-size baseball field, and our Knockmollen track is deplorable. We can't even use it, and we have an all-star track teams. So we have had a series of meetings. All of them have been posted on the city website on moving this process forward. The school building committee voted to allocate $1 million of the balance of the Bresnahan funding to the field space projects, not the high school, because that's taken care of now with the CPC money. It's going to be bonded. We have a large donation for the field from the Institution for Savings, and that project will begin in June. So now we're left without a baseball field, Knockmollen, poorly designed fields, poor irrigation, and a failed track at Fuller. So the school building committee voted to allocate $1 million of the Bresnahan balance towards the repair of the fields. So we were under the impression initially that we could just do this, but through our conversations on the city with the bond council, we found out that we really had to do a separate vote. This became a real challenge because of all the special elections and because of the election that just happened in November and the recount that is happening this week. It became a real challenge for the city clerk and all the things that were happening. So the decision was made to keep this relatively, low key until after the election was over, and at that point we began having conversations again. There are very strict rules about what you can do in terms of a debt exclusion. We don't have a campaign, we don't have a budget. As we raised a lot of money when we did Port Pride in order to send flyers out, to do signs, buttons. It was a huge campaign with hundreds and hundreds of people. We just don't have the funding to do that, and we can't use city funds to do that. So where we are is there's been meetings with sports people and sports teams around this. And we also have the ballot posted on the city website, what yes means, what no means. Tomorrow night, December 2nd, it's been posted for a while, is a huge field space meeting at City Hall at 6:30 to go through all of the field study that's been done for multiple years, plus go through all the different projects that are happening. And then the vote is on Tuesday, which basically is, we had said that with the 2 school projects and the senior community center, it would be roughly an increase of the average taxpayer about $350 per year to accommodate all 3 of those projects. That ended up coming in below that. So now, with this new vote on Tuesday, if approved, to fix up the Knockmullen fields and put in a full-size baseball field, and to begin working on the Fuller Field irrigation and a new track. These will be capital campaigns that will still need additional funding to make them fully, to be fully implemented. The increase would be an additional $19 a year. So the total increase is still less than what we originally had told the taxpayers when we first went out for the vote on June 5th, 2.5 years ago. So that's...
I'm just saying respectfully so that if you're asking the community to come out and vote, I would disagree that the fact that it exists and what the ramifications are either way are clear. I'm not the best in the world, but I'm pretty web savvy enough to click a couple links. I went looking for information for the past couple days and had a hard time really finding anything.
Well,
So,
I would hope people would come tomorrow night for the community forum.
what I'm telling you is that it doesn't say on the calendar that it exists. And you can say it's a field discussion, whatever you want to call it, but if you're asking people to show up to the vote, and you know as well as I do that as much as we applaud our democracy, the percentage of people to come out and vote on any given year is low. If you expect a decent amount of the constituency to come out and vote, you have to do better than to bury the fact that the vote exists a couple links deep on one calendar somewhere. I'm just,
Okay,
that's
no,
really,
I appreciate the
my only
feedback.
comment here is about a communications piece, because that's the committee that I spent
Okay.
a number of nights this summer on.
There's been articles in the paper, there's been radio spots, there's...
Again, I think I do a pretty good job of trying to keep up with what's going on in town, and so do the people I hang out with, and we didn't know about it. So I'm just prompting, just wanted to say that I think we could do better if we want a representative sample of people to come out and vote for it, and a majority of people to think highly of the process that's used to allocate funds in the city.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
So I want to thank you. I said all of this 3 hours ago at this very table. But I do want to just clarify with you that the vote, the powers that brought about a vote and a ballot question is not with the school committee. We're not aware of it. It's the city council.
Yeah.
Although it's our property, and I just want to clarify that because I have 3 very angry constituents on this phone reaming me today because I voted for a ballot question, which I did not vote for. So I certainly appreciate you speaking up, but I just, if I can get it on record that we had nothing to do with this, I would feel a little bit better. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Manning?
Yeah, I do, again, I appreciate, Dave, very much your raising this issue. I think we worked very hard this summer to try to look at communication issues. As I shared earlier at the Joint Ed meeting today, I had 3 bits of information that came to me in the last 24 hours. One was from a former school committee member who told me that the money you were asking for had already been bonded, which is not the case. Here's somebody who tries to stay informed. I had a school committee member today tell me that well, the good thing about this is that the Fed, the state's going to pay for half of this, which also is simply not not, again, an accurate piece of information. And the third piece was that the amount of money that apparently came out of the school building committee was $750,000, and that money was actually raised by coming to the $1.7 billion figure was actually done by the city council. It went back to the school building committee. So those were three things that, and I try to stay in the loop. Those were three things that I was completely unaware of, and I just found out about that in the last 24 hours. So there is a real lack of information. I think I've always believed that if you give the people all the information they need to make good decisions, you tend to get good decisions. And I don't believe that there is enough information out there for people to really think this through. And that's not to say that we don't need fields and that this isn't an opportunity. All of those things are absolutely true. But we've got a real problem here in terms of people making informed votes. And I'm not just talking about the people who are interested in having fields. There's a much larger community out there of folks who are going to have to dig into their pockets, and that there just simply isn't the kind of information and communications I think behooves a city of our size and stature. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Orlando.
Ralph Orlando, 4 William Hall Drive, and I will again preface all my statements to school committee members only. This is what I'm here to talk to you about. I was actually absolutely amazed that you didn't have an agenda item on the athletic field on tonight's meeting. You all know what's going on. It's no secret. I share some of your sentiments, and as you know, the big issue here is one of communication. And if you were at the joint ed meeting a little earlier, you would have found out some other interesting things about how misinformed people are. That all being said, I want to say some things in favor of what's being proposed and in favor of our students. And I preface it by saying I am a citizen member of the school building committee, and I've been attending these meetings for nearly 10 years now. I think I missed 2 school building committee meetings. I have encouraged this committee on many occasions to review the activities of the school building committee on a regular basis at their meetings, and you failed to do so. This information has been readily available to me, your representatives on the school building committee, as well as the city council school representatives. All that being said, let me just make a few points about the vote and why we need it. If anyone in this room believed that the infrastructure of the Bresnahan School was in sorry shape by the pictures they showed you, the condition of the athletic field is similarly in very bad shape. This is all about infrastructure. There were a lot of things the school building committee did inside the building that we were allowed to do that actually had absolutely nothing to do with the education of our students. We listened and we made appropriate votes. For example, the school building committee chose to renovate the entire auditorium here. New flooring, new seats. There's a number of reasons why we did that, which I don't have to go into right now. There's been a lot of taxpayer dollars allocated already through CPC to fields here. Didn't have to require a vote. The field at the high school is being renovated with CPC taxpayer dollars that only required a committee for vote, plus a large contribution from a community resource. Similarly, the fields at Cherry Hill were subsidized by CDC funds, not requiring a vote of the public to allocate those, but just requiring a vote of a committee of appointed members of the city. That also came with contributions from donors in our community. The fields are in sorry shape. The track is condemned. We lost 2 baseball fields in building the new Bresnahan. That was a struggle we had on the school building committee from the get-go, but we wouldn't pass up the money that the state was coming across with to assist in making major infrastructure renovations to the schools and a new school. Now, all that being said, I would ask school committee members to attend this meeting tomorrow, because we can't talk about communication. It's past tense. Okay, we can't talk about how a vote got out there. It's past tense, it's there. Your opinions are very important to your constituents on how you feel about using these funds to renovate a sorry shape of athletic fields in this community. If we were willing to spend the money and the taxpayers voted that the money be spent to renovate the schools, we came in under budget. I can assure you that both these projects will require additional funding from community donors. It will come once the city shows their support for this, and I ask school committee members to start forgetting about what's past tense. This vote is going to happen. I would like to hear you tell your constituents what your feeling is on what to do about the fields, because they're in as sad shape as the Bresnahan was if you ever take a walk down there and take a look at them.
Thank you. Anyone care to comment?
Okay, just for clarification, is it 1.0 or 1.7?
It's 1.7. The school building committee originally approved 1 million, and then the city council increased it to 1.7.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Not about school fields, that's okay?
Sure.
This is my first city council meeting, I don't care about being on camera. I'm here to express my support for Bruce Mennon's proposal that there be a committee formed to study the possible different uses the school department might make of the Brown School.
Can I just ask your name and address, please?
Oh, certainly. Rebecca Witt, Ash, 30 Lime Street.
Thanks so much. Thank you. We will be addressing that proposal later on this evening, just to let you know. Any other public comment? Yes.
I'm Paulette Turco. I live at 37 Mill Street. And we're both here representing the Brown School Neighborhood Group. We have 104 people on our contact list. And I'm talking for support of the agenda items for the due diligence committee, subcommittee, as Rebecca did. Very much in favor of it, and the neighbors are very much in favor of evaluating what the school could make use of the Brown School. We know little bits of information such that there's less space than was expected to be available at schools for classrooms. There is discontinuing of language instruction in the middle school. There's not enough room here in the high school, and the Brown is looking towards a future and possibly to be decommissioned, but we do want the school committee to follow due diligence and make sure that there isn't a need by the schools that could be met at the Brown School before its destiny is changed.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
My name is Christine Doherty, 13 Purchase Street, which is also near the Brown School, and I am here also to speak in favor of Mr. Mennon's due diligence proposal subcommittee for the Brown School.
Thank you. Anyone else? On any topic? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Do we have warrants, Mr. Leonard?
We have warrants. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate to $25,206.33 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts on this.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Great. I have a second warrant. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate to $196,656.99 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts with that.
Could I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We do not currently have minutes from our November 17th meeting for this evening. We'll catch up on those the next time we meet, Mrs. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Julie Bradley, tell us all about the high school.
Well, the first thing is the juniors won Color Day. The class of 2015 has never won a Color Day now.
What does that mean?
The Color Day is like a competition between classes for the Color Day jug. And if you win, you get the jug and your numbers, your class numbers go on the jug. And so my class has never won it.
You don't want to talk about it. I'm so sorry I brought up the subject. Sorry.
My class never won
We'll have another one.
We didn't even have a Color Day in my school. I'd like to have never won it.
On the 3rd, there's a poetry soup. And then this Friday, the 5th, I'm having a women's self-defense class at the school, along with the owner from my dojo where I practice karate. A lot of people have signed up already, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. And then on the 12th, we're having the Student Day of Poetry, and we had that last year, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Excited. And
What is it?
a lot of local poets from the Newman area come down, and at the beginning of the day we have an assembly and they perform, and then different poets do different workshops with all the students. And then we have another assembly at the end of the day and the students can perform as well. That's about it.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to the MCAS presentation and accountability report, so I'm either going to turn that over to the superintendent or the assistant superintendent. And I think we have a venue change, do we?
We are going to have
Looming.
We are going to have a venue change. What we're doing the presentation a little bit differently this year in that Assistant Superintendent Beck is going to do an overview for the district, and then each of the building principals will be presented.
Could you speak louder?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. We're doing things a little differently this year with our MCAS presentation. Assistant Superintendent Beck is going to do an overview first, a district overview, and then we're asking each of the principals to present their building's data. And we are also going to ask people to have a venue change to move over to where the screen is. We have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a broad overview. As Superintendent Picaro said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about growth data and accountability status and how that is calculated. And then the school principals are each going to present for their schools, and then I will do a wrap-up of some cohort data and some community comparisons at the end. Okay? Okay, growth data. Growth data is relatively new to the way we look at our MCAS results. So growth data is a student's growth over the previous year compared to their academic peers. And I'm going to tell you how their academic peers are determined. Their academic peers are students who's in the state with similar scores on their MCAS over a period of time. So the state determines those students to be their academic peers, and then they compare how they're improving to that group to determine the student growth percentiles. These percentiles range from 1 to 99. And so, to make that easy, just to think about why we use student growth percentiles, is that it's a more individualized way of looking at how a student is progressing. Students earning high growth percentiles answered more questions correctly on the 2014 MCAS test than their academic peers did. Okay? And conversely, students earning low growth percentiles answered fewer questions correctly than their academic peers. So I wanted to put these two charts side by side for you so that you can see the range, because we're looking at two different pieces of information when we look at our MCAS data. we are looking at academic or achievement performance, and we are looking at a student growth percentile ranking. So if you look at the chart to your left, this is how we determine, these are the scale score levels and the range of performance for warning, needs improvement, proficient, or advanced on the MCAS. And a student's scores would fall between 200 and 218 for warning or failing, 220 to 238 for needs improvement, 240 to 258 for proficient, and 260 to 280 for advanced. And then next to that is how the state determines lower growth, moderate growth, or higher growth, and what those ranges are in those scores. So every student, regardless of his or her level of achievement at the beginning of the school year, has the same opportunity to grow at the highest or lowest rates. So it takes them from where they are, and it determines how much they're growing from where they started, rather than looking at the achievement level to do that. Okay? And we use this data to reflect on what worked well and what might not have worked so well, to determine the possible factors that may be contributing to the growth percentile, either positive or negative. And new this year, the growth percentile, student growth percentile in the areas of English language arts and math, which are the two areas that we have growth data for, is also one of the measures that is used in the educator evaluation system towards the teacher effectiveness rating. Okay. So let's take a look at this. These charts are showing you English language arts and math, grades 4 through 10. We don't have growth data on students in grade 3 because it's the first year they take the test. Okay? So we have growth data grades 4 through 10. In Newburyport, our median student growth percentile was 60.5, and that was based on 998 students taking the test. For math, as you can see, the median was 67 we had one more student who took the math test at 999. The state median score is 50. So at the top of this graph, if we start with ELA, what we're going to be looking at is the various groups. We're going to be looking at what the median, the center column is the median student growth percentile, and then the far right column is the MCAS, the percentage of students that scored proficient or higher on our MCAS. So all grades, as you can see, is our first row. Low income, or all of our grades, is the second row of data that you're looking at. All grades for students who have disabilities is the third row of data, and then it is broken out by grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, through grade 10. So looking at this data, and particularly when we look at both of our growth percentile and our percentage of students in proficient or higher ranges, it becomes clear that some of our subgroups are still struggling in that area. Okay. Then the state determines what kind of accountability status the district and our schools are given based on a few things. So there's some shifts that have happened over the last couple years. Massachusetts has replaced No Child Left Behind, or the NCLB. We're going to have lots of little abbreviations here, so try to spell those out for you. The goal of No Child Left Behind through adequate yearly progress was that 100% of our students would reach proficiency by the 2013-2014 school year. So that was last year. It has been replaced with Progress and Performance Index, or PPI, which is a goal of reducing proficiency gaps by half by the end of 2016-2017 school year. So a proficiency gap is the distance between a group's current proficiency level and reaching 100% proficiency. That's how the gap's determined. And the state measures the progress of districts and schools for both the aggregate, or all of their students, and as well as student subgroups, which include the combined high needs group. So you're going to see us speak to high needs group several times this evening, and what that means is all of our subgroups combined. So the state now reports on when you combine any of your subgroups and you put them all into one category, they're considered a high needs group. So you may see data represented that way. Okay, and there are 5 accountability and assistance levels. There's level 1, which is the best place to be. And level 1 means that you're meeting the gap narrowing goals for all your students, your aggregate as well as your high needs group. And there are accommodation schools that are considered high achieving, high growth, gap narrowing schools. They're considered a subset of this level 1. Then there's level 2 schools, and those schools are not meeting the gap narrowing goals for all and or high needs students. So either way can put you into that category. Level 3 are the lowest performing 20% of our schools, and that includes lowest performing subgroups as well. Level 4 is lowest performing schools as a subset of level 3. So when you look at that 20% that are in level 3, those are the lower performing schools within that group of schools at level 3. And then level 5 is our underperforming schools, and those stem from level 3 schools. So I just want to talk to you briefly about PPI, or the Progress and Performance Index. So what PPI does is it combines information about narrowing proficiency gaps in ELA, math, science, growth, and graduation and dropout rates over 4 years into a single number between 0 and 100. Now, I don't understand, I don't expect you to put this all together. I'm just trying to give you kind of a big picture of how this is calculated. Massachusetts uses 100-point Composite Performance Index, CPI, which you will see if you go on the Department of Ed website and you look at, all of district data is now public, and it's really broken out very nicely on the department website under Newburyport. And you're going to see these abbreviations in that data. So this will help you understand what you're looking at when you look at some of that data. Okay? And the CPI is to measure progress towards the goal of narrowing proficiency gaps. Okay? It assigns points to each student who participate in MCAS here at the school, or takes an alternative path to do the Portfolio MCAS alternate assessment test. And it's based on how close they come to scoring proficiency or advanced. And it's measured, and they assign a point value. So 100 points are assigned if the student is above the target. 75 points if they are on target. 50 points if they improved, but they're still below the target. 25 points if there's no change, and 0 if they have declined. Okay. The CPI is calculated by dividing the total number of points by the number of students in the group. The result is a number between 1 and a 0. All right? If you would get a CPI of 100, it would mean that all the students in the group are proficient. For a group to be considered to be making progress towards narrowing the proficiency gap, its PPI must be 75 or higher. So we're going to take a look at our data around that. Now, given that information, let's take a look at our data. So as you can see, this chart talks to us about all students, our high-need students, our low-income students, our students with disabilities. And we have district data. We have data broken out by each of the schools. So as you can see, when we look at our all-student data, those numbers are all in green because we have met our PPI goal for all of our students. So that's our aggregate. And then when you look at high needs, we've got a little ways to go. We're close in a couple of categories, as you can see. Our Knock-Mullen and the Bresnahan, we're not that far off target. Low income, we met target with our low income subgroup at the Knock-Middle. And the places that you see not applicable or NA is because there were not enough students in that subgroup for it to be calculated at that grade level or at that school. And then our students with disability. Now there's something about this chart that might look a little odd to you. If you look at the district, and it says that the district met our target at a score of 75, but the Bresnahan was 78, the Mullen was 86, the Knock was 80, and the high school was 93. Why is the district at 75? And the reason for that is the district scores include all of our students. Anybody from our Newburyport district, whether they are placed in district or out of district. So this includes anybody who falls under the Newburyport Public School data is in the district data. The school data only includes the students who were tested in the school. So, we have our Bresnahan, Mullen, and Knox School did not meet PPI for several of our subgroups. But the high school also did not meet the target, but for another reason. And that was because we had low MCAS participation rate. And not that we had a low, excuse me, I'd like to rephrase that. It wasn't that we had low, but we did not meet our participation rate at the high school. You have to have 94% or higher participation rate. And we had a couple circumstances where we had students with significant complicated situations and weren't able to test. And so it lowered our participation rate. So the good news about that is that's pretty fixable. We were able to identify what the issue was early on, and we should be able to rectify that issue. Okay, so where does it put us? Newburyport is in level 2, which means we do not meet our PPI targets for either the aggregate or our high needs group in one or more of our schools. We saw that what it was our high needs groups is the area that we really need to focus on in trying to meet PPI, and that was our situation across the board. Okay. And then there was a new rating this year, and it's MRAR, which means meet requirements at risk. And Newburyport is considered to be making progress but we are at risk for not meeting the needs of students with disabilities. And I think our data showed that. You know, our data showed that our subgroups and our at-risk population is an area that we still need to focus some attention on. So to help support this status of MRAR, the district received the Special Education Program Improvement Grant for $18,586 this year, which is being used for professional development for special educators in the area of literacy and in the area of a variety of interventions that we can put in place to hopefully support our students in the way that they need to be supported. It's important for you to understand that approximately 80% of the schools in Massachusetts are classified in level 1 or 2. I've talked to you a little bit about how you can be ranked a level 2 school for participation rates also. And that was our case at the high school, and then our cumulative PPIs for our high needs students was not 75 or higher at present. So that's a quick overview of accountability and how it's calculated. And we're ready to move into our schools. So I'm going to ask Christina Davis to come up and present for the Bresnahan School. You're welcome. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you? Good. I think I'm good.
So I have information, and what you will find is that regarding grade 3 MCAS scores, but what you will find is that all principals have a very similar template in terms of the information that we'll be providing you this evening. We all follow this template. It has a little variation from school to school. So I had taken a look at what I wanted to share with you this evening in regards to what our process was, a general overview of what our findings were. We, as a staff, the third grade teachers, on October 1st, took a look at the MCAS work, and they analyzed the data along with the curriculum coordinators, us, and our special educators. We used a process that was shared with us by Turk. We've had a lot of professional development with Turk a couple of years ago on how to look at data. And we utilized their data analysis protocol so that we are consistent when we look at data across the board, whether it be MCAS or any other forms of assessment that we provide the children during the school year and analyze, whether it's the beginning, middle, or end of the year. A couple of things that we noticed: significant increase in mathematics performance. Spring 2014, we had 76% of our third graders fall within the advanced and proficient range, as compared to 63% in 2013. We also noticed, without delving down deep into the questions, that in mathematics, there were 11 students who scored in the high range in the needs improvement area. 24 students in English language arts scored in this high needs improvement range. Those numbers are significant. If we could bump those students up to the next level, we will be doing really, really well. The high proficient band for mathematics, there were 26 students. And for ELA, there were 10. So when you take a look at the high needs improvement band for math and the high proficient band for math, we're talking about 37 students that are so close to being bumped up. The same holds true for ELA, with a total of 34 students. wanting to bump up to the next level. Additionally, for mathematics, we have some information that we want to take a look at very closely when we analyze data. There is some concern about measurement in data. We want to address this. Out of the 9 questions, 3 of those questions fell below state average. Only one of those 3 is a released question that we can analyze. The other 2 are non-released items. All 3 of those questions were multiple choice. Operations and algebraic thinking, another area. 3 out of 12 questions were below state average. 2 were multiple choice and 1 was short answer. Yet, on other questions within this area, students scored up to 10% better than the state. In English language arts, there were no relative areas of weakness that were identified. Students scored up to 13% stronger than the state, on questions including short answer and open response. Short answer and open response are those questions that we've spent, especially open response, a lot of time working on, so that students understand they need to persevere through the entire question. Part A, Part B, Part C, etc. That's challenging for 8- and 9-year-old children. And that's where, and I think our efforts have paid off here. Because we did note that we had some difficulty with some multiple choice questions. On the next slide, you will notice a graph that helps us see where our students have fallen within each of the 4 performance levels. In English language arts, 12% in advanced, 60% proficient, 25% in needs improvement, and 3% in warning. On the right, the same holds true for math, 27% in advanced, 49%, and I don't need to read all of it to you. We were also asked to take a look at goals, actions, and measures of success. At Bresnahan School, we have identified that the full implementation of Engage New York is a goal for us. We piloted many of the modules last year in some of the grades, and now we are in full implementation, not only for grade 3, but for grades pre-K through 3 and on up. And then I want to move to the right. Rather than going through each of the goals, I want to walk you through from the goal to the actions and then to the measures of success so that we can do it as it is aligned. Additionally, we established a vertical math group, K through 12. This group met last year in June for a full week. This group met again in November on the Professional Development Day, and this group will meet ongoing on an as-needed basis. We also have ongoing professional development by our very own Dr. Kinsley, our mathematics coordinator, as well as Dr. Chen. And Dr. Chen has been in district recently. He has been in classrooms conducting walkthroughs, and he is also going to be here next week on the 11th to visit and work with teachers, and he will be doing a presentation on the early release day in the afternoon. We have added a new position for this year. We now have a math interventionist on board at Bresnahan School, working with kindergarten students through grade 3 students and teachers. We also have dedicated a tremendous amount of collaboration time into our schedule. We have one meeting a month that is designated for curriculum and instruction and assessment, but we are working towards focusing on curriculum assessment at all of our staff meetings this year. In the summer, as a district, we developed a professional development calendar that you may be familiar with, and we are adhering to that calendar, and it is helping us remain focused. It's making a big difference, having that to reference not only at the school level, but at the district level as well, in addition to our early release days. Another goal is to enhance the core curriculum in literacy with the implementation of a new phonics program. You've heard about SpellLinks/ClassLinks. This year, this program is being implemented in K-1, and we are committing to enhancing and bringing this further along in the fall to grades 2 and 3. And that is an action as well. SpellLinks, we had the full day professional development just before the start of school. This is one area that I am still learning more about, as I wasn't able to attend that professional development day with the teachers because we were preparing for opening the new school. So Emily Russin and I have a plan to do walkthroughs together and talk about those walkthroughs in regards to the actual implementation of the program. Again, ongoing PD and support with our curriculum coordinators. Again, ongoing grade level collaboration during staff meetings and early release days for this goal as well. We are looking at implementing SpellLinks in grades 2 and 3 next year, which I already mentioned. And there's an intervention component of SpellLinks that we will become better familiar with and ready to also utilize that program for intervention. And then our third goal is to analyze data gathered from our online intervention programs. For literacy, we have Lexia Core 5, and in math, we have IXL. Students work independently within the school day, as well as many students have access to these programs at home. We want to enhance the analysis of the data on both of those programs. We would like to get to the place where we're analyzing it on a weekly basis. With that careful and detailed analysis, teachers will then become very familiar with the intervention in terms of instruction that they need to provide, so that they're receiving the intervention as they work independently, but then following that independent work, if there are areas that they continue to struggle with, then the teacher will be able to provide the instruction that is needed. And there are also extension activities as a result of Lexia Core 5. And we want to get those extension activities built in to the great work that our teachers are doing. How will we assess all of this? The implementation and analysis of Engage New York assessments, of the interim assessments that we began last year, the analysis of DDMs, our district determined measures that we are beginning this year for the first time, as well as formative assessments that teachers are using on an ongoing basis. We need to analyze all of that data together in conjunction with MCAS. No one piece of assessment data should be utilized in its entirety by itself. Progress monitoring of the student learning through the core concepts through Lexia Core 5 and IXL. Cross-analysis of the literacy data, utilizing spelling assessments, DIBELS data, the benchmark and common writing assessments, along with formative assessments. An analysis of mid-year and end-of-the-year growth. for both literacy and mathematics, and that will be based on our DDMs as well as other assessments that we give mid-year and at the end of the year.
Thanks, Christina. Tara, would you come up and present the Mullen School data, please? Yes, Mayor, do you have questions?
I just wanted to, Christina just asked a question. The technology that we saw in terms of the curriculums that or programs that we're buying to use in the schools. Now, there was no mention of using Engage New York at the youngest grade levels, but at above 3. But now here you have that we're doing Engage New York at the earliest levels.
That's right.
So how does the software programs that we saw, does that enhance?
I didn't see what you saw. I apologize to you for that. I didn't see what you saw.
I can speak to that, but a lot of the apps and the work that you were seeing, the teacher, the things that you saw in the teacher room. So that goes on across the district because those tools are available to teachers across the district. So the technology piece.
She saw IXL.
So
I think IXL is one of the things that was
Right. But there are all kinds of curriculum programs that were there. And we're saying these are what we're using in pre-K.
But I'm not sure what you actually saw tonight. The two that I made reference to tonight are for intervention specifically, for students that are having difficulty in either mathematics or with reading.
So they supplement, they enhance
Absolutely.
more work, creative exercises, in addition to the fact that we're going pre-K through 12 with Engage New York.
Pre-K through 8.
8, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. So my data analysis process slide is just it's a little out of order, so I'm just going to jump right into the strengths and weaknesses that we looked at as a school just from analyzing MCAS, not from looking at our other assessments. These strengths and weaknesses are strictly from the MCAS. So our grade 4 ELA strengths that stood out were strengths around the key ideas and details strand and vocabulary acquisition and use. Weakness, which we continue to see a pattern of, is student responses to open response and the writing prompt. When students come to 4th grade, it's their first time answering a writing prompt in a testing format. So a question is given to them and they need to respond in written format in a testing atmosphere. That's their first experience with that. And it usually causes a little bit of anxiety for students, but they put a lot of effort into their writing. Grade 4 math strengths were operations and algebraic thinking and number and operations in base 10. And again, an area of weakness and room for improvement is short answer responses and measurement and data. Grade 5 ELA strengths, key ideas and details, and then craft and structure stood out as a strength. Open response, still an area for improvement. Math, number and operations for both base 10 and fractions this past year were a strength. And an area of weakness was the area of geometry. Grade 5 science, earth and space science and physical science stood out as a strength, and there weren't any significant areas of weakness, partially due to the number of questions that they ask around each strand. At times there can be maybe just 3 questions around a specific strand, so it's really hard to judge if that's a weakness or a strength based on this one test. So our last year's cohort, these are the percentages of advanced proficient needs improvement in morning for ELA and math at grade 4. Advanced and proficient was 53%, and for math it was 48%. When they get to grade 5, there is usually a pretty significant jump between the grade 4 MCAS and the grade 5 MCAS. Our ELA for grade 5 was advanced and proficient at 84%. For math, 77% at advanced and proficient. and for science, 66% at advanced and proficient. The process that we use at Mullen is within the first 2 weeks of school, the teachers are all given their MCAS data. So they're given their MCAS data for the students sitting in front of them in their class, and they're given their MCAS data for the students that have moved on to the next grade. The teachers want to see how their students did from the year before, and they also want to take a very close look at the students that are sitting in front of them. And then they identify the students that are in warning and needs improvement, as well as the students in low proficient. And they really try and focus on, which is somewhat similar to what Christina was saying, they try and focus on those kids, because there are always kids that are right on that cusp, and it's 1 or 2 questions away from bumping up to the next level. And so there usually is a focus on trying to bump those kids up to the next level. And when you look at a couple of years worth of data moving from 4th to 5th grade, you can see that there is that bump up from 4th going into 5th. All of us have access to all kinds of data broken out all different ways on the Mass Department of Education. And so I break it down in a number of different ways to give to the teachers, so they can look at the strands, they can look at any test items that are released, and then I also broke out the data for every student that is in needs improvement or warning this year, for ELA, math, and for 5th grade science. I broke it down, each student as an individual, so the teachers could see where each student in their classroom that was in the lower performing, at a lower performing level, where they were having difficulty, the specific strengths and weaknesses of each one of those students, so that they're able to narrow in more closely when they're working in small groups with students. We analyze the data at staff meetings, and then I ask the grade level teams to meet together as a 4th grade team and a 5th grade team and report out to me action steps that will be taken to address the student needs that they're seeing, based on the MCAS data and then based on some of the assessments that we do right at the beginning of the school year. And then at the bottom there, I mentioned a number of the other assessments that we use to look at student progress. So it's not just the MCAS, it's reading benchmark data, results from writing assessments, math unit assessments that are built in, and all of those together help make some decisions regarding the after-school help sessions that teachers started in late October. So all of the Mullen teachers are offering an hour, 45 minutes to an hour worth of after-school help around ELA or math or science. And it may switch term to term what the focus is. So this slide is laid out differently. I basically put the big goals on top, which are implementing Engage New York. Think SRSD. Think SRSD stands for Self-Regulated Strategy Development. This is a research-based program that we are implementing this year. We are trying it with one of the genres of writing. We are implementing it with opinion writing. The teachers will be trained this Friday and next Tuesday. All of the teachers will be trained in this program. As I said, it's research-based, and the goal of the program is it's very explicit instruction for students around how to work through each phase of the writing process in the hopes that students will become more independent writers. And the research shows that it's highly effective and that it really increases students' ability to write well, and write independently, as well as edit and review each other's work. So then CoreClicks is something else that we're piloting right now. Our teachers took a look at the benchmark reading assessments that they do at the beginning of the year with their students, and what stood out to them was the students may have significant strengths and may be scoring higher on the benchmarks when they are reading fiction, but when they're reading nonfiction, they were scoring lower. And so the teachers brought that to my attention, and in working with Emily Russin, Emily found this great program called Core Clicks. It's out of Scholastic, and it is 100% centered on nonfiction and learning how to close read a text and analyze a text and learn the features of nonfiction. And then Emily and I, last year and this year, we've been doing some significant work around guided reading and the implementation of guided reading and what that looks like in a 4th and 5th grade classroom at the different reading levels. And so that will continue through this year as well. There's a lot of work happening. All of our staff meetings, like Christina said, usually a staff meeting is one day is curriculum, one Wednesday is curriculum, one Wednesday is business. It's probably about 10 minutes business and the rest of it's curriculum. A lot of curriculum work. So you can see the actions are the vertical. There will be, with the Think SRSD, the teachers are conducting the pre-assessment this week. And after they learn the program and are trained in it, in the implementation, at the end of the teaching of the opinion genre, they'll do a post-assessment. So I'll be really looking forward to seeing what the pre and the post-writing assessments will look like for our students. What else? The success, we also, this is new for Mullen this year, we're implementing Lexia Core 5 as well, which is a reading intervention that Christina mentioned. Some of our teachers are using IXL. It's new to them. Brez has been using it, and it's likely that the Mullen teachers will want to adopt that maybe full-time next year. We also use Study Island, and there's another program called Moby Math and Moby Max that the teachers use for math practice. So our success will be measured by the Engage New York assessments, which teachers are already using. The exit tickets are part of the math program. The teachers do a lesson. They give an exit ticket at the end, which is basically like a mini assessment. Teachers can look at those exit tickets on Monday night and say, wow, these 10 kids got this. You know, they're on task, they're on target. These 5 kids really need an intervention tomorrow. I'm going to pull them in a small group and do some extra work with that. So that's a really great part of the Engage New York program that I know our teachers are really enjoying. The teacher feedback, comparison of pre and post writing assessments, data from the Core Clicks program, our reading benchmark scores, which are done at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and also mid-year for any students that we've had concerns about. Comparison of fall reading scores and spring reading scores, and teacher feedback regarding piloted program.
Thank you, Tara. Does anybody have questions for Tara?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that all these teachers are providing anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour after school help. Are you tracking that? See how many kids are coming for?
I am. Yes, I asked.
You didn't mention it there, so I'm just asking.
Yes, absolutely. I asked the teachers to let me know the day, the time, what their focus is for this first round of after school help and the students that are attending.
Good.
Yes. And then we also have, on top of the teachers offering extra help, we also, both Brez and Mullen are starting, there's another after school program that's starting with math focus and a literacy focus as well, that the teachers, 2 separate teachers are teaching as well.
If you're looking at, again, bump those kids up in those upper bands, seeing how many of those kids are coming for help, and if that success is going to be really important.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree.
Since you brought it up, the kids that are participating in the after school, do we have any number of kids that have been recommended for after school help, but due to transportation? Because I know a lot of the after school stuff, you have to have a stay-at-home parent. Are there kids that are recommended for help that are just saying no because of the transportation issue?
I have not had that specific concern brought to my attention as of yet.
Yeah.
It's a great, I was going to say, it's a great question, and I would, if a parent had that concern and, and their child was their name was brought forward as a student that needed extra help, I would definitely try and work out a way to try and find transportation for that child, even if it's within, you know, the group of students that are in that homeroom but I haven't had any of those concerns yet this year.
Okay, because I think it might be actually a district, you know, issue that I know, like the WIN, you know, what I need we did last year, and but really is dependent on transportation, and I don't think we offer a late bus to the Mullen.
Absolutely, that's very valid. No, we don't. No, Mullen does not have.
Or the
a
Bressingham.
Right.
We just had this conversation at an RTI meeting a couple of weeks ago, and our after-school program hasn't started yet.
Right.
Our formal literacy and math program.
Right.
But I am interested in knowing if there are going to be children that are unable to participate because of transportation.
Yes.
What can we do to?
Because it's actually a Bressingham parent that brought it to my attention that her child's being recommended and she's having to decline. So I will tell her to contact you.
Yes. Absolutely, because I think we would I agree that we would definitely try and work to try and problem solve that.
Like we did last year when we had when we ran the tutoring program last year. There were a couple of kids that did have transportation issues, but we were able to work it out with other kids that were in the program too. So, yeah, tell her to not to say no until we try and brainstorm the way.
Thank you, Tara. Thanks. Beth Rossi, going to present the middle school.
Is anybody awake?
We wish.
I guess we all did it a little bit differently, and mine is, when I look at students in the middle school, I like to see growth 6 through 8. So I think our MCAS scores over the past couple of years are really beginning to indicate successes in a lot of different areas. So I'll start with, a year ago, our English language arts staff, we sat down, we talked about literacy skills, reading, writing, and collaboratively they set their SMART goals around improving open response. And the goal statement talked about a variety of different strategies that they would use to meet the goal, and the goal was to improve student scores by 10%. So by developing a common language around instruction, evaluation, and different practices, grades 6 through 8, they more than exceeded that goal in this year's MCAS data. Grade 6 improved by 9.9%, grade 7 22%, and grade 8 10.3%. So that was a nice story of growth. Our student growth percentiles are also in healthy shape, according to this year's data. In math, the grade 6 was at 52%, which is below what we'd like to see. It increased to 72% in grade 7 and to 74% in grade 8. Like Angela explained earlier, the data, we also have concerns in the middle school. Although we met our, what do you call it? At the PPI, I'm sorry, for the low-income population, we still have built programs around them. A year ago, we started what we call an intervention program. And when we analyzed the MCAS data, which is very similar to the previous two principles, we really pull out the students that may not be identified on an IEP or a 504, but we know they're at risk. So a year ago, we started an intervention program for them with one of our special educators. And this year, we have really increased that, and we are beginning to track a lot of data with it. But when teachers in our CAB groups, the CAB groups are our curriculum content area groups, they pull out the students that they feel are at risk, either by previous year's grades or by MCAS or a variety of different things. And we really begin to flag those kids. So we started this year an MCAS math class that specifically targets MCAS math strategies. We also did that for English language arts, and they're each a semester course. The other students that are part of that group might be in for just a specific skill set, and once, if they're in it for 6 to 8 weeks, and they improve and become or approach mastery at that skill, we move them back out. So it's a revolving door, and it's actually really helped us quite a bit. Very similar to the other schools, the data's the data. We obviously, in the same categories, would like to move kids up. Once teachers really begin to analyze very specifically the children that are sitting in front of them, the goals for those children are to move them up into the next category. It can be, they really get into different strands, what questions. They analyze it to death, maybe sometimes too much, but obviously we want to really build strong skills in our students that can carry over into, translate into MCAS scores. So here ELA is in very healthy shape. Math, not quite as much. We want to move that warning category right out of there and needs improvement. This year we started a small group math class for kids that were really struggling and needed a smaller group, and as they're identified in their IEPs as needing that. In grade 8 science, we don't have student growth percentages like Angela indicated because they take the science test in 5th grade and then not again until 8th, so it's a cumulative test. We are not where we would like to be in that. We've done a lot of shifting in our curriculum over the last 3 years, and this year's goals with the science teacher are to really align with the Common Core and really make that solid by the end of this year. We haven't lost ground, but we certainly have remained stagnant in science, and that's a concern of ours. Our data analysis process is not dissimilar, although I think an advantage that the middle school and high school have is that our teachers are in specific content areas. I get the MCAS data probably 3rd week in August, and I send it out to teachers right away so that they can really begin to look at it while they're still on vacation if they so choose. And then when they get into their CAB groups, that's when they really begin to dissect it. We give them grades 5 through 8 so that they have the children that are sitting in front of them this year and also the ones that have just left, because they love looking at the ones that just left to see how their teaching performance was, see how their goals resulted in MCAS scores. I'm not going to read that to you. I'm looking at some of you a little bit glazed over, but we really pull out the low needs improvement and we really pull out the warning, and those are the kids that we like to get right at the get-go so that we can schedule them into support systems right from the get-go. I've talked about this a little bit already, but you can see, I mentioned that already with the English language arts there. I really encourage our teachers to set goals together. It really promotes collaboration. It really gets them talking about what's working, what isn't working. It really helps them to develop a common language. It's really paid off. Grade 6, 7, and 8 in math, you see their growth rate and where the state rank is. It's growth through the middle school, which is wonderful. But now the sole focus is on really learning and using and collecting data on Engage New York. I think that came down kind of quickly and swiftly, but they have embraced it and are doing quite well at it. And I think specifically Matt Taffel, our CAB leader in math, is collecting a lot of data on each and every lesson, what's working, what isn't, what can be used, perhaps not, because it is very time consuming as well. They need the full school year to finish it, and it's actually quite ambitious, maybe too ambitious, but we'll see. Science, like I just mentioned, is completion of hopefully by the end of this year. Is that correct, Liz? We're moving full steam ahead with the next generation of science standards there. Disappointed with the scores that they had, so they have been dissecting those and have really evaluated what strands are weak, and what they have tried to do is put them in each of the grade levels to see if they can build strength that way as well. Am I missing anything on that?
That refers to, you're referring to the grade 8 science engineering scores.
I am. Goals, actions, and measures of success. I want to bring up attendance, not because I have parents sitting here, but in our RTI, we start every meeting with our attendance. Who's out a lot, who's beginning to be truant, who has school anxiety, all of those little details that if we can prevent a child in the middle school from falling through the cracks, that's where we are beginning to really plug up all the holes. And attendance is an interesting story because we also know that by 7th and 8th grade, sometimes those students are already at risk for dropping out. And those are the things that we're trying to prevent. Universal supports have been put in place in the middle school. We have done, I've talked about this at many meetings, we've done a lot with executive function. How do we help this developing brain that we know is not necessarily organized in a mature way until now that they're in their 20s. So we have put a lot of pieces in place all around the school so that if I'm doing walkthroughs, I've done many with Susan or others, and I want to see the homework on the same place on the board in every room. I want to see the agenda. I want to know what strand you're working on in curriculum. Outside in our hallways, if you haven't seen them already, you'll see an Are You Ready board so that students can glance at it, know what their schedule is for the day, because this is a lot. This is a lot for an 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old. We are moving, shifting, shaking all day long in classes, but we want to make sure that we honor their budding independence, but we also want to give them all the supports so they can succeed at it while they're here. I mentioned the MCAS intervention classes. We did start that a year ago. I think this year with Brenda Parmesano has taken over that program, and she is gung-ho. She has done all kinds of organizational pieces for students that are really quite supportive. And I think in the intervention class, she has all of the data that we picked apart question by question so that the students that are in that class will get very specific targeted goal setting when it comes to whatever challenges they had on the test. And I do want to mention that we in the middle school really have, as I'm sure others do too, an intentional focus on developing a vibrant learning community. And we start off in grade 6 with the whole Kiev Project Adventure experience, and we try to move that through the grades. I know each of the teams has their own personality, their own way of really engaging a student into the relationships that they have with teachers, because that is what gets kids to school. That's what drives them to get here. It's not that we're going to do Engage New York today, and it's not that we're going to go over matter and energy and science. It's that my teachers really love me here, and they want to bring me in with a variety of different warm-hearted activities that promote strong leadership, promote good citizenship, and also really get kids to school because they're excited to be here. Content area analysis. When we really dissect MCAS and we look at the student response analysis, that's when we go back into our curriculum and what are we missing, so that we connect course goals with those students' needs, because that's what the data is telling us. Formative assessments. We are a very project-based school, so all of those formative assessments also count. I know MCAS, if you look at the 8th grade science MCAS scores, I really wish we tested science every single year. I would love more of that data. I would love to give kids that experience, but the other experiences we have, that's what we have, so that's what we measure our growth on as well. I've already talked about open response writing. I do want to mention our social studies group as well. They have connected to the ELA goals in writing and literacy. The SRSD training that Tara mentioned, we're also engaging our social studies teachers in that, because the reading and writing that goes on in that course is such a support to ELA scores and MCAS. All content areas are working toward the Common Core. They've been working very hard at that for the last couple of years, so hopefully that will come to completion, and then we're going to have to reevaluate it each year because a lot of it's new. Measures of success. I think the SMART goals that teachers are setting are truly smart. I think that they are having fun seeing those results. They're working on it together. And now you have two or three content areas really working on literacy skills together with a common language throughout the school. Pre and post assessments across all content areas, do writing pre and post, reading pre and post, we have a lot of assessments here. And DDMs are new this year, so it'll be interesting and fun to start to collect data on those as well. And then there's MCAS, which brings us here tonight. So.
Yeah. Is there a reason why elementary school uses TARC analytics, and here it mentions Edwin?
The process that Christina talked about from TARC was all of the data analysis training we did a couple of years ago in the district. It was TARC that led that process, and that's when we had, remember when we did all the training around our data teams and how we look at students? That's what Christina was referring to. Data analytics, the Edwin Analytics is a component of the data warehouse through the Department of Ed. So it's just, it's part of the data warehouse, and it allows you to analyze any of the MCAS data that is stored in the analytics. So it's just a platform for doing some of the analysis.
I just had a couple questions. Could you, and maybe I missed this, but could you explain how you calculate that open response growth?
Yeah, that was came out of the Edwin Analytics. It's the student responses. Open responses are worth 4 points.
Okay.
Did you know that?
So that Edwin Analytics, we don't use that at any other grade?
No, it's available at every grade.
It's used at every grade, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Is that
it just breaks away, it breaks apart data in a variety of different ways.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to see what it looks like?
No, I just, I wasn't sure if that was employed. Were those stats given from Olin?
No,
okay,
I don't.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Some of the schools.
How do you calculate it then if it wasn't done the year before? How do you calculate it?
It was done the year before.
It was done?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's based on what was done in the, so for 6th graders, it was based on what was done in the 5th?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's growth over the year.
Right, okay, all right.
And when we first went after that, when I first arrived here, when we would look at open response, you'd see 1s and 2s, and we talked about that as a staff.
Yeah.
No, there's 36 points of open response on any given MCAS test. And it was just such an easy way to target. First of all, let's get solid in this skill. It's open response. Obviously there are many forms of writing, but they all began to score them the same way. They use the same 4-3-2-1 that the state does. They began to collect exemplars. And it should be on every test that they give, so students have ample time to practice it.
Okay.
And I think that's why you see the results that you do. And it's they're moving in the right direction.
Right. Okay.
That.
Like I said, I hadn't heard that mentioned from Olin, so I just want to know what the baseline for grade 6 was compare. Okay.
And I think that's a little different, Steve, than the growth.
Right, SDG.
Yes. Right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike Parent. Talk to us about the high school.
Okay. Report high school. I do exactly what the other principals. I get information out to my department heads, who then filter it out to the respective either 9th grade teachers for biology or the 9th and 10th grade teachers in ELA and math. We spend time at the beginning of the school year. I think time is one of the critical factors that I think you have to be always aware of, is to giving teachers of those subjects time to collaborate, discuss, and to come up with short-term and long-term solutions to some of the strengths and weaknesses that they're finding out of our students' performance in those 3 content areas. For ELA, our weaknesses was especially in the nonfiction area, and specific questions to main source of evidence questions in nonfiction. Connotative meaning, we really need to go back and stress metaphors, irony, satire, simile, and symbolism with our 9th and 10th grade English students. And we noticed in two areas last year, 9th and 10th grade ELA fatigue, the numbers questions 29 to 39 were predominantly where we had most of our incorrect answers in ELA. In strengths, the fiction analysis, Shakespeare, and the open response and long composition, our scores were very good. In math, our weaknesses was in the numbering quantity category, and our strengths, not surprisingly, was in our geometry. Students are currently, most students who are taking the MCAS in 10th grade are currently taking geometry when they take the test. In the biology area, we were surprised by the number of open response questions that students did not answer or did not attempt to answer well. We also looked at the questions that were given to us by the state and realized that many students were really failing to read the questions carefully before they responded. And one of the strengths that we found from the testing last year was that our students did significantly better on the multiple choice questions of the biology MCAS tests. As you can see, our scores are indicative of, we have good representation in the advanced area, especially in the math area. Our needs improvement numbers are down, especially in ELA and math. I'd like to see them in single digits in the biology. We knew going in with the math that we would have 4 or 5 students who would struggle on the math to even get a needs improvement score, and that kind of played out. We do also have the same supports that my colleagues talked about with specific programs for students who are weak in those general areas to help support them to hopefully get them to pass the MCAS in their junior or senior years. Next slide. Our data analysis, the 9th grade and 10th grade teachers analyzed the nonfiction excerpts, Shakespeare, the short story and the poems, and they realized also that our students did relatively poorly on the poetry questions, number 37 to 40, that were in that range of where we saw most of our incorrect answers on the ELA. And our long composition scores in ELA were high, averaging 16 out of 20. Math analyzed what's there, and again, their finding was quite simply that our students did score much higher on the geometry questions as compared to the algebra questions on the MCAS math test. In biology, the 3 grade 9 biology teachers analyzed the multiple choice and short answer responses. What they found was that and what they're trying to correct for this year is that our current curriculum gets into a lot of great detail about many subjects and concepts in biology, and some of the answers that students were responding to incorrectly, they weren't looking at the bigger picture, and so we need to really reinforce that big picture analysis of a concept as opposed to getting into the minute details. And that reading is reading closely is very important for success in all questions, that we need to come up with strategies around vocabulary, and that students should methodically eliminate answers before choosing an exception. That was one of the key areas that they found in the data analysis and their findings. Next slide, please. ELA, where we are incorporating more nonfiction reading into the curriculum for both those years. As a matter of fact, we're doing that grades 9 through 12. We need to do a little bit more practice for taking maybe longer exams to battle that fatigue issue that we saw in the ELA questions 29 to 39. We are developing exams that mirror the structure of the MCAS for our students to have more practice prior to taking the tests. We always analyze the questions from one year to the next, but also going on at this time is a lot of collaboration, a lot of discussion, a lot of time, just as my colleagues have explained, of having that department and faculty meeting time where curriculum and instruction is the focus of the meetings that we have, and breaking out into smaller groups and talking about best practices and looking at common assessments throughout, 3 teachers in biology or 4 teachers in algebra or 5 teachers in geometry, and looking at the student results on those common assessment questions and analyzing best practices to try to move everyone forward and to improve our schools. Next slide, please. In math, to go back and focus on the number quantity category, we've already reviewed and revised our math MCAS reference sheet for special education students. I got approved by the MCAS Central about 2 weeks ago, so that's already been done. And what our math teachers found, that they need to spend a little bit more time in the 9th and 10th grade reviewing and reinforcing the concepts in the number and quantity category that were covered in the previous grades. And that's something new that came out of the analysis this year. And again, just like with ELA, the math teachers have been working very diligently, collaboratively, looking at, again, common assessments, formative and summative assessments that they're giving their students, and collaboratively working on what's the best practices and what's working and what's not working in the classroom. Biology, the 3 biology teachers are creating open response questions for their unit tests that mirror the MCAS open response, utilizing the same type of rubric, scoring them on a 4, 3, 2, 1 scale. They're utilizing the same open response questions with a standard grading rubric on their unit exams, and then going back and looking at that data, how well did their particular students do in comparison to another teacher in the department, how well did that student, and then looking at the best practices that teacher that's getting the better results is utilizing. And again, giving teachers the time to collaborate, to analyze the data, and to do this on an ongoing basis, on a bi-weekly, monthly time frame is critically important.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to let you take a glance at some of the cohort data that takes us back from 2007 to current, for our last year's, not current, but our last year's scores. They're color-coded, and this is where you can actually track a group of students from year to year and see the progress that they're making and how those scores vary. So this is English Language Arts. This is a look at math. And at science. Take a closer look at those. You have that in your packet, so if you really want to spend some time examining that. And then, as we provide you every year, the school committee the state has determined comparative communities. As you know, those changed last year from what the school district had determined as comparative communities. So these are the state-determined comparative communities. Then we have our geographic proximity communities, and then the aspiration communities. And this is showing how we compare in the area of ELA at grades 4, 8, and 10, because those are the 3 grades that the state does comparisons on. I do I also, on this slide, we added what level each of the districts were in. As you can see, every level, including the aspiration communities, are at a level 2, just like Newburyport. So, just thought that might be interesting to see. And then science. You'll see a little discrepancy here in science for the high school scores compared to what Mike presented to you, because the scores, the school scores, represent just the biology scores. So those represent our 9th grade scores, which were at 89%. This comparison is 10th grade scores, which represents our 9th grade scores, and all of our makeup science exams that are being taken for students who failed to pass the first time. So these scores are a little bit different, just in case you notice the difference.
And new students moving into the
And, yes.
from out of state.
Very good
We had
point.
quite a few of them in the last 2 years.
That didn't take the test as a 9th grader.
I've got seniors right now. I had 7 seniors math, but in February, the only test that the state gives in the makeup is biology. All of those seniors are taking physics, and they're going to have to take a biology MCAS test to show that they're proficient. And so that's the conundrum we have with the state and what they do with science.
Science, we're hoping that science is going to get tighter with the next generation science standards that are being implemented, because even as, you know, Beth Rossi was talking about, and as Tara presented to you, our 5th grade and 8th grade scores are a cumulative score of 3 years worth of curriculum. And they're tested at those levels on all domains of science. Where at the high school, they're tested on one domain of science, and usually it's the current year that they're studying. So it's not, it's, you know, it's apples and oranges looking at that data. So thank you so much for your attention. Are there any questions?
Just one more comment I would make is that one of the things that we'd like to do in the late spring is to come back and to actually share with you some of the data that the individual schools are working on in terms of the interventions, and to share with you which ones worked, which ones didn't, and what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. So we'd like to do that in the late spring.
And I would just like to thank all the principals for coming and doing this presentation for us. Usually it's poor Angela that has to do all of it, but it's not, I know this is hard to come out at night, but it really matters to us that you know, you're talking about what you're proud of in your schools, and to hear it from you, I just appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I second that. Thanks.
I am really hoping that all of you, as a way of introduction, took the time to read Mr. Menon's proposal on the Brown schools, so that he doesn't have to go through all of this information all over again.
Are there any extra hard copies available?
I gave them all out.
Oh, you did? Oh, you did. Because the one I got in my packet obviously wasn't up to snuff, because I know it's been amended, and just been, I couldn't print today, so I had sent Kathy maybe an email.
Yeah,
thank you.
And she sent out, she sent this out on Google Docs as well, but the person to approve the Brown School Talk Committee, what are we calling it? Due diligence for the
Due
Brown.
diligence proposal with a completion date on or around March 1st.
Second.
Discussion?
Let me give just a very, very brief. I'm just going to give a very brief orientation to it. I restructured the proposal so that, in effect, I talked about what the assumptions were, and I talked about what I think a good due diligence process should do. And I would like our process to be a good due diligence process, taking a look at whether or not the present needs that could possibly be addressed by having the site or even future needs in a more imaginative discussion. And essentially the vehicle for that I'm suggesting would be an ad hoc committee, being sort of pointed through and driven by the school committee. I've made a number of suggestions of the kinds of people I think who could sit on that, in the hopes that we would get approval tonight if we're going to reach out to some folks. And people are enthusiastic about the idea of taking a good serious look at it. And it's in that spirit that I'm offering this proposal.
And Mayor, I would, as a mayor and also as a long-term resident who lives 2 doors down from the Brown School, and my children had the fortunate opportunity to attend K-4 in a neighborhood school. I certainly, through our neighborhood meetings, understand that this is the opportunity we have to evaluate from an educational perspective, is there needs that can be met in the Brown School, because everything's on the table at this point. As we move forward, we had an artist focus group last week, which went incredibly well. We had, I think, 12 artists come and talk about the prospect and need for artist studios. We met with a smaller ad hoc group representing more of the city component of how we would move forward in parallel tracks at the same time, why the due diligence process is going on, and obtaining feedback from the community about the feasibility study, which has been posted on the city website. And we'll continue to move both processes forward as we begin to come to a conclusion this spring about what we are supposed to do. The only question that I do have, Bruce, is how are people sending emails directly to you, through the school, central office?
I'm open to a variety. I mean, on some level, I hope to sort of get a representational committee, and to some extent that means strategically looking for some folks. But I think people who want to volunteer should volunteer. And I think the tasks are, as I've laid out, I think that the tasks are broad enough that there's going to be work for some people.
So you should send an email to the school committee?
Yeah, send it to the school committee.
Okay, just so that we're all aware of who's applying, and sending a letter of interest to be part of this process.
And I'd like to say a couple of things about, not just about that, but we're going to, tonight, hopefully we're going to vote this proposal in. I would like to add 2 more caveats if I could. I'd like us to vote in Bruce as the chair of that subcommittee, and I would like to ask that 1 more school committee member serve on that committee with him. The third thing is, you just said that I believe you said that the city side is moving forward, and then Bruce's committee is moving forward. I don't want I want to know how they're going to, the synergy is going to be there. Because I think we get in trouble when we work parallel.
Part of it is that I serve on that subcommittee, the ad hoc committee.
All right, so you're feeling comfortable enough with it?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. And Jared Eigerman is on the ad hoc committee, as well as Paula Turcotte, who is here tonight, representing the community. So I think it's just making sure we have sort of a subgroup, actually, of the ad hoc group, who is helping the city in their process as we move forward. And so, and keeping us in the loop in terms of what's happening with, sort of the due diligence that.
And the reason I bring it up is because I want us to all be on the same page and not.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So is there another, maybe you can tell me offline or somebody, is there anybody at this point that would like to volunteer to be on that committee? It's, you were intending to run through March 1st, and you're going to come back with a recommendation.
Yes, there'll be a written set of recommendations, a report.
Which may or may not result in the school committee decommissioning the building.
Well, the school committee will have before it both ideas and
No, I understand, but
yes.
that's the end goal, is to decide what we do with the Brown School.
This is our process.
All right.
Unless someone else wants to offer.
Thank you, Audrey.
Me too, again? Me too.
You too?
she lives in Marlborough Street.
I
Do you
do.
want it? Go ahead, she lives in Marlborough Street.
Go
ahead, you take it.
I'm easy.
I got the pack committee.
So Cheryl,
Yeah, that's
Thank
fine.
you, Sharon.
That's fine. So we're having this discussion. I'd just like to add to the discussion that we go ahead with the ad hoc committee and that we appoint Bruce as the chair of the committee.
One motion to show that we
already have a motion on the table. Yeah, we're in discussion mode, so
We have a
I'm
second
just
on the table,
reiterating.
and-
Yeah.
I second it. Mayor, if you want to make the change to the amendment to reflect this change.
was there a motion made?
There was a motion to approve the Brown
Okay, well
School
then-
ad hoc
Okay,
committee with a report outdate on or around March 1st, I believe, which I will now make a friendly amendment to add Mr. Bruce Benen as chair.
All those in favor?
We
need a roll call.
Discussion, there's some more discussion.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry, discussion.
And this is not to, take anything away from Mr. Menon, but in his own proposal, he suggests that the ad hoc committee would be a working group that would choose its own chair and vice chair. So I didn't know if this motion conflicts with what your intention was with this group.
It doesn't for me, and my feeling, frankly, is the group can pick its own chair. I'm interested in getting underway as quickly as possible. So
I just wanted to point out that was the only difference I noticed.
Fine.
I would say that as a committee of a subcommittee or a task force appointed by the school committee, I think it would be within our purview to name the chair in the interest of getting the organization up and running quickly and beginning to deliver their results by March 1st. So I think I would stick with the wording that's proposed by the mayor.
Did you get to the part of the proposal about everybody having ice cream? So
No,
I'm flexible on the flavor.
I didn't.
Bruce, perhaps you could amend this proposal to
Absolutely.
show that that has already been taken
Well,
care of.
for those who read the proposal carefully and with a red pen, you'll notice there's a few typos and grammatical errors, and I would like to make those corrections as part of the proposal. They're minor, but they're there, and so I anticipate that I would be given the opportunity to make such corrections, and I would make that correction.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do we need a roll call? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I have another motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to just throw out a couple little pieces of information. One is that I saw I'm not sure that everyone was aware that Mark Ritchie of Mark Ritchie Woodworking, remember we had voted to set up a historic group to prepare information regarding Brown and Kelly for the Bresnahan School, and that group got together and they pulled together all these artifacts, but we had nowhere to put them. So I reached out to Mark Ritchie and asked if he would be willing to donate and make cabinets for the school, and he agreed to. And they're just waiting for the glass to come in. They're beautiful.
Great.
So I just thought you all would like to know that. And so under Pam Jamison, Bruce, I thought, were you on that committee too?
I was sort of on it.
Yeah, and Gleewood Worth and other people. So anyway, so I'm very, very excited about the fact that those cabinets are almost ready and will be put in the schools very shortly. And I just also, again, I know that's been difficult about the field vote, but you know, we really need these fields. And I think, as you heard in public comment, it's an extra $19 a year that really would not have been added to the existing debt exclusion because we didn't go to the full $3 million, and that, you know, the big forum is tomorrow night. People, please come. We will be doing more information across the week through media, through cable, and on the radio on Saturday morning. And just, you know, this is our opportunity to take a chunk of money to be able to do something with the school fields. And, you know, again, there wasn't money to do the full campaign like we did with Port Pride, so please help us with your word of mouth, speaking to constituents. We really do need to begin to put this money towards fixing up the fields. And they're not just for the schools, they're for the entire community. Look at the numbers of people who use those fields, groups, as well as people who walk that track. So it's important. So thank you.
I would just add just one, for those who know him, Greg Earl's mother passed away on Saturday. Greg Earl's mother, she was quite sick. Greg Earl's mother. His mother passed away on Saturday.
Thanks for letting us know. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?